Are you a fan of worker placement games? Maybe you're a long-time fan of Everdell and recently purchased the complete collection. Well, do I have a spin-off game for you set in the Everdell universe. It is My Little Everdell.
Hey Danny, worker placement games are my jam. Speaking of worker placement games, you're in my seat. How about we play a game of Everdell? Oh, I love that game. Give me a sec while I go get it.
Sure thing.
Yeah. You little...
After living in Everdell, a worker placement paradise for several years, I've often dreamed what life would be like beyond the edge of the forest and from the glow of the Evertree. What if the city of Everdell branched off into new suburbs and created cozy hollows where younger critters ambitiously start building their dreams? My Little Everdell is a reimagined version of Everdell for younger players and new gamers. It's a gateway game, a doorway game into the wonderful world of board gaming. In My Little Everdell, players are going to be constructing buildings and hiring critters, all with the aim of preparing for a huge celebratory parade at the end of the year where we share our pride and love for all. As younger members of the Everdell civilization, players will be building forts, exploring lookouts, and even sailing a pirate ship down the stream. Players will engage the help of the local wildlife, including a barge toad, postal pigeons, bears, and even Prince Pumpernickel. Throughout the game, players will be sending their 3 workers to different action spaces. At the river, there are different resource dice that will be rolled each season that provide a different combination of resources you can gather, including berries, timber, and resin. On the far side of the river, players can share the spaces with their friends and gather 1 resource per worker here. Players are ultimately gathering resources to play cards out into their tableau. Resources gained can be used to draft and pay for cards in the meadow. Players do not have a hand of cards in this version of the game, so it's an intense open competition to build your part quickly. Pay the combination of resources at the top and place the card in your area. There are 5 different card types that have been retained from the original game. These include production cards that produce every round, red location cards where only you can send your worker there to gain extra bonuses, blue ongoing bonus action cards, and purple end of game scoring cards. Like discovering a new mineral for the first time, players will have to envision how their city wishes to grow, find clarity in the card combos, and be rewarded greatly. The ultimate race, however, is to be featured in this parade. There are 4 stacks of parade tiles that are allocated to players that complete their conditions first. It might be having 5 critters, or 5 buildings. It might be having 3 cards of a particular suit, or even 1 of each card type. Like racing paper boats down a stream, this dell is everlasting. What originally drew me to the original base game of Everdell was its cute, wholesome, creature-based theme. The idea that you're building buildings and then inviting all these critters to help you build your civilization. I really found the puzzle of trying to build my tableau of cards quite an interesting experience, and the idea of moving my workers progressively and fluidly across the rounds, per se, in different seasons, quite an interesting, unique take on the worker placement. The idea that after you've deployed all your workers, other players could still be deploying their workers even though you may have progressed into the next season. And I found that kind of overlap of different rounds quite an interesting aspect to the game, because you were trying to exploit the most out of each of your workers each and every time you place it out onto a board. So it was kind of like a race of efficiency, as well as trying to deter other players from taking what you want. My Little Everdell really takes some of the core DNA from the original game and twists it in some ways. And I think the focus of My Little Everdell is to make it approachable for younger players or casual gamers. And I think the game does it really well. It takes really familiar mechanics from other games and weaves them into a way that makes it feel a tight worker placement game, but one that's easy to grasp and easy to step into. If you own Everdell, you're probably thinking, is there a place for this game in my collection? And I think it depends on the sort of audience and people that you play with. If you're introducing Everdell as a game for the first time, My Little Everdell is actually a really good way to I guess, sample the flavors of Everdell and sample the flavors of whether people in your group actually like worker placement games. One of the cool highlights of the game is the fact that they've retained the 5 distinct card types. The idea that you can place your little workers on your own red cards to trigger bonus actions that only you can perform, but also the production is a little bit more fluid in this game because it produces at the beginning of every round. I also like the fact that they're using these dice, and that doesn't feature in the original game. The dice simply just give you different resources, and they're more plentiful and more advantageous to get the resources from the dice than it is to go to these crates on the other side of the river, simply because you get 2 for the price of 1. The dice just really reshape the availability of the resources, and this game is more centered around what combination of resources do you have. And I think that's an interesting puzzle to approach, and it's one that new gamers are probably going to grasp onto a little bit more. It's like fulfilling recipes. I think lots of people know that when you're baking something, you need a certain number of ingredients to get that product at the end. The one thing that they did remove from the game was the idea that if you had the building that matched a critter card, that in the original game you could just play that critter into that building for free. In this game, they've seemed to have split the 2 card types. And I think that's one of the main things that I'm disappointed by in this game, is the fact that there was a really cool synergy and interplay of cards and a sense of efficiency when you were able to play a critter into a matching location for free. And I think taking that element away from the game really probably changes how I feel about this game. And I know that rule does add an extra level of complexity, but I think it's simple enough and satisfying enough that it's worth keeping in the heart of the game. Now, in terms of card play and tableau building, the game is obviously a lot more simpler. The fact that you can't send your worker and use someone else's red location is kind of removed from the game, so you're kind of really only focusing on what you're building and trying to race and outcompete what other players next to you are building. The main level of interaction that occurs in the game is through this center board area. The fact that these spaces don't really change from game to game apart from the dice rolling means that every time you approach this game, the main variability that's going to happen is from the market cards that come out and how you actually acquire those market cards and use them in your tableau. The game provides you little advantages, especially if you're a younger player. So the captain and fort cards give you an extra victory point, and the fort itself gives you an extra resource that you can use as a wild card to contribute to paying for one of the resources for a card you want to buy. I think just those little touches just makes this game so much more accessible for younger audiences. The parade tiles have replaced the event tiles that were in the original game, where you had to have a certain combination of cards in your city in order to claim the space and gain the extra victory points at the end of the game. I also like how they've kind of stacked the parade cards so that if you're first to satisfy those conditions, you actually get more points than someone else who satisfies them later in the game. So it's kind of like a 4-way race to try and nab those 4 conditions first, because they're going to really swing your points at the end. I think that just really makes those original event tiles a little bit more purposeful in this game, and I think it works superbly well. Now, if you've been a long-time subscriber to my channel, you know that I really appreciate an excellent solo mode. And if you haven't subscribed, now's the time to do it. This game comes with a simple solo mode. In fact, 2 different solo modes. One with Prince Pumpernickel and one with Princess Periwinkle. Each plays slightly different. With Prince Pumpernickel, basically, he takes up the spaces on this competitive worker placement board, and then he takes cards from the market, and you're trying to outcompete his score by the end of the game. Whereas Princess Periwinkle is simply removing cards from the field, giving you less and less choice of cards for you to be able to take into your tableau. I love the simplicity of the solo mode, which means that it's very little account keeping when it comes to actually playing the game, so you can literally play the game on your own without having to worry too much about a second player. And the idea that you can actually include Princess Periwinkle in a 3-player game, and it kind of acts as like a third dummy player. I know with the original base game of Everdell at 2 players, you didn't really churn through the meta cards very often. And introducing a new player into the mix, or a dummy player, means that you're going to be able to see more of the cards and fine-tune that combo a lot more efficiently. So in considering my final verdict, if you are a brand new gamer to the hobby and starting your collection for the first time, or you know that the people that you're going to be playing with are your family members or people who are not very experienced with board gaming or heavy Euro games, then my Lil Everdell is a really great fit for your collection. If you don't have Everdell and you're thinking about getting Everdell into your collection, then I'd probably stick with the base game, because the base game just has that little bit of extra crunchiness to it that makes it really satisfying. If you're someone who is an experienced Eurogamer and thinking, ooh, I've collected the entire complete Everdell collection, should I add this game? This is probably one you should try before you buy, mainly because it doesn't really do anything majorly differently to the original game. So if you are a new gamer coming into the hobby and looking for a great gateway game, I'd probably say that this game would be a 7 out of 10. If you are an experienced heavy Euro gamer and you just want more of Everdell, then I'd probably say this game would be more of a 6 out of 10. Thank you once again for joining me for this awesome board game video. If you'd like to support me, then don't forget to like and subscribe to this video on my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want to go an extra step further, head over to my Patreon page and support me there, or become a member of my YouTube channel. Also, you can help support me for free by checking out some of my other videos. There's a huge backlog of videos waiting for you, and there's a video for everyone. This is Danny signing out. I hope to see you in the near future for another Board Game Sanctuary video. Enjoy your next game and leave some comments in the comment section below. Goodbye.